Hello, Tendent Podcast listeners and viewers. Mike McCarthy here with my partner in crime, Matthew Petchel.
Hello.
And we are super excited to have two incredible people from the dental industry as our guests today. We have Larson and Bill Newman, the owners and proprietors of Group Dentistry Now, the industry's ground zero for all things group dentistry.
Bill and Kim, thank you for joining us on our
Thanks for
humble.
Thanks
for being proprietors. I was like, wait, are they selling cheese and like dry goods? Like, what is?
It's a pub.
Okay, got it. All right.
It's a pub. Now, Group Dentistry Now is my go-to. It is your crash course into what's going on in the world of dentistry, not just at the DSO level. I think everybody should know about what's going on and what's affecting. Dentistry is dentistry. The place that it takes place in can be different, but thank you guys for keeping me up to snuff. Overarching first question, let's get out of the gate with this, and both of you feel free to answer. As a media source, we know how important marketing is to gaining attention, attracting patients, attracting customers, attracting a whole bunch of eyeballs on a brand. Kim, since you are my marketing sister and soulmate in here, what is critical for a practice, whether it be a DSO practice or a private practice, to cover their bases in marketing? Two areas, hotbed. One, in attracting talent, other clinicians or staff, or B, attracting patients. What are the must-dos, in your opinion?
So I'm glad that you brought up attracting talent, because that's a critical issue in our industry. Whether you're a solo practitioner or a large, a huge dental group or anywhere in between, you have to differentiate yourself. And there are many ways to do that. Small groups, mid-sized groups, and large groups, they do use us, like Group Dentistry Now, to sort of get that message out there, what they're doing, what their philosophy is, because, there's an industry saying that when you've seen one DSO, you've seen one DSO. And we can attribute that to Dr. Mark Cooper. And it's very true, because they're all set up differently. And as time has evolved, and we've been here pretty much since the beginning of the consolidation of dental. And we've seen so many changes, and there are so many different models, and there's a model out there for you. You just have to find the right models. Getting that out there, distributing that information so that people can find the right DSO match or the right group match is ideal. And also, for dental students, they're coming out of school with a lot of debt. They don't necessarily have the skills yet. They need mentorship. And if you're a DSO that, say, offers mentorship, or hopefully they're all offering it, or training, and like I said, hopefully they're all offering training, whatever it is, you want to get that message out there. Those days of going to a dental school and having like a pizza party and thinking that the dentist is going to come work for your group or your DSO, those days are over. You really need to entice them. They're the key to your success. And in terms of patient marketing, I'll toss that one to Bill.
Yeah, thanks, Kim. I mean, that's where it becomes a real challenge, right? I think, there's a lot of focus on getting new patients in the door, and maybe not as much focus on things like retaining the patients that you have. So I think that's one of the things where you can leverage, and maybe we'll talk about this a little bit later in the podcast, technology, ways to handle recall, and, ways to, gain more treatment acceptance. So I think, from a standpoint of patients, a lot of that revolves around the website that you build. It's moving, from CO now to, actually having AI, right? Like ChatGPT pick up, information from your website. And then even, hey, are you answering the phones? Can you leverage AI? If somebody actually does find you, or do you have somebody at the front desk actually picking up that call, or does it go into voicemail? And then if that's the case, they're probably going to call somebody else if they're a potential new patient. So it's like, how do you handle that missed call? That, you don't want to miss those opportunities. So I think there's not one way to say, hey, this is the way to get new patients. It's not just throw more money at Google ads. It's really kind of a multifaceted approach. And I think that's where people like you, Mike, and Matthew, and some other companies can really help them.
Kim, you said something really interesting, and it's when you've seen one DSO, you've seen one DSO. Why do you think that is? Is it truly because everybody's a unicorn or a snowflake, or is it because the DSO industry just hasn't figured it out yet? Like, hasn't figured out the right model, meaning like there really shouldn't be 1,000 different business models on how to run a group practice. There should be, there's a handful. Like in other businesses, there's not a wildly different business model for everybody who competes against each other. When you're talking about, different ways to do something. So is it, what have you seen on, and it's really for both of you, what have you seen on, why is every DSO so different? The leader, or is it the culture, or is it, they don't know, they hadn't figured it out yet?
Wow, that's a good question. I'll toss that to Bill, but first I just want to say that just because there are a lot of different models doesn't mean that they haven't figured out yet. I would say that most groups would argue the exact opposite. That essentially, they're trying to build a model that appeals to again, it comes back to the staff, right? Having a good team in place.
Right.
And you really need to offer them possibly ownership. It depends on the person. For example, this industry there are a lot of women working in this space. So as clinicians, do they want to work 5 days a week, all day, chairside, and then at 5 p.m. start doing the admin and dealing with all of the equipment issues and the hundreds of other things that happen throughout the week? As a woman, with kids, I wouldn't want to do that. I want to go home and have my personal time with my family. So it's so for me, if I was a clinician, I would probably want to go for a group that offered a model that fit me. But perhaps I'm a young guy or something, and I would really like to have a lot of say in this, in the group, in the space. I want to have 10 locations. I want to have equity. I want to have ownership at some level. I also want to maybe even get involved in the administrative part of it, become like a clinical director or something. So I'm going to look for a group that looks more like that. So it depends on, everybody has a unique perspective on what they want their life to look like. And I think that the DSO industry is trying to provide that. And we're seeing more and more smaller groups that are dentist-owned, dentist-led groups coming into fruition here.
Good point.
And that's the biggest change that in the past, say, I'll let Bill talk about that more, but it's a private group practice. It's about, in the past 3 to 5 years or so, we're seeing a shift that way. So it's a fluid industry. It's changing. It's adapting to the needs of not only the patients, but the teams.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Bill,
You have anything on
any additional on that? Because I've got my next burning question for you.
Yeah, I'll try and keep it short, but there's a lot to unpack there. And Kim's right. I think back to Matthew's original question there, I think part of it is because, we're still in the, I don't know, third or fourth inning of this consolidation. So we're still, I think, early days. So the models are all trying to everybody's trying to figure out, the best model. To Kim's point, some are private equity backed, some are doctor owned and led, so they're a little bit different. And I think that, for a young clinician or somebody looking to potentially maybe a doctor that's in their 40s or early 50s that's looking for affiliation, right? Somebody to sell to and kind of have that, maybe a piece of equity. It's a great opportunity because there are so many different models. So some of it's culture, some of it is it the tech that they're using? Are they just general dentistry? Are they doing specialty in-house as well? Some of it might be patient-based. Are we doing more underserved? Are we doing fee for service? So there's kind of all these different models, and they all, just like private practice, right? There's different types of clientele. There's different types of dentists with their education. I think geography has a lot to do with it. So it makes for great opportunities for a young clinician or somebody looking to partner up. But it's also like, how do I figure out which one to go with? Because there's all these different opportunities. So I think that's where we've tried to do, and I think we've done a pretty good job, is educating our audience, and we don't just have large DSOs and mid-size. We've got a lot of solos that are subscribers that are there to either just learn from groups like, hey, they probably have it figured out. Maybe I should pick up some tips from them, or I'm going to just pay attention to who's doing something that I might like, and they might be a good partner for me.
Right. Well, and when it started, right, so it was more back to front. That doesn't make any sense, but like it was when the consolidation happened, it was older, right? Older practices selling and sort of groups growing. But if you were a young dentist more than 20 years ago, you were likely going to work at a small practice as an associate. And that was where you were getting we'll call it your MBA, right? Your advanced training in how dentistry really works. But now it's kind of flipped, right? Mm-hmm. That's not as likely. It's more likely you're going to go work for a big group and then in the middle, go work for a practice, maybe start maybe get some ownership, maybe become an associate, whatever it is. And then it's almost like another step has been added. And now sort of the DSOs kind of it's like a sandwich, right? They used to be on the back end when you wanted to sell, and now they're on the front end and the back end. And then the middle is this, and I'm sure that there are clinicians that work their entire career in group, but a lot of them want to go scratch that, entrepreneurial itch and be like, okay, I want to go try to do it. How has that whole dynamic changed? Because that's a pretty big shift that's happened over the last couple of years.
Well, I mean, I think that the shift that's happened, really, a lot of it had to do with a lot of money coming into the space in 2016 through about 2022, early 22, late 21. When money was cheap, private equity found dental, started to invest tons and tons of money, buy platforms, in a lot of cases probably overpay for platforms, because again, money was cheap. And then all of a sudden we have COVID, and then we have inflation, and a lot of private equity, realized that they maybe bit off more than they could chew. And also we're in a situation where you have a 3 to 5 year typical window hold time for private equity, where they're looking to grow and then sell. And you've got, saw the numbers last week, 43 platforms, private equity backed DSO platforms that have been held for 5 plus years, 44. So that means all of those, and some crazy. Half of those were 7+ years. So that means all these private equity firms, these 44 platforms, need to turn, right, for their investors. That's what they want. So you got this really interesting situation. So I think you had private equity say, okay, for the most part, they've held way back on investing in additional platforms. And then you've got a lot of doctors that are like, okay, well, I'm probably not going to I was going to sell to a DSO, I'm not going to get what I could have gotten 3 years ago for my practice or my group. So I'm going to do it on my own. So partner up with other, doctors, kind of create this private group practice. There are now resources like ours and a lot of others out there where now dentists can learn how to run a DSO, figure out the model that works for them. Go back to when Kim and I started Group Dentistry Now in 2014, there was nothing. There was no blueprint out there. Now there are proven models. So I think it's easier. It's not easy, but it's easier for younger clinicians, entrepreneurial clinicians, right, to partner up and start their own group. So again, a ton of opportunity. And I think it's like for the doctors that are looking to start a practice, or, maybe add a practice in your audience, I think it's a great opportunity. There are so many people out there that can help guide you, so many solutions.
And just to give some perspective, when Bill and I started Group Dentistry Now in 2014, there was nobody out there doing what we were doing. And then there was a lot of anger at the beginning, especially towards us, the ADSO, other groups like that, because there's so much anger in the industry. When we started, probably about maybe 800 or 1,000 DSOs. And now just a short decade or so later, we're well over 2,000 DSOs. It's just going. And then there are some people who bring up a good point, which is like, what role does dental schools play in this? Back, like you were saying, Matthew, maybe back in the day, if when you graduated, you become an associate, or maybe you would hang your own shingle or something like that, or buy the practice from the dentist after a few years. You can't do that anymore necessarily. because of the high cost of dental school.
Yeah.
And so sort of if I, if I had a kid, I would say you're probably going to have to, you're going to work for a dental group or a dental school to get not only to get your skill set up because you're not getting that in dental school, but also to pay off your, I don't know, $100,000 in loans. What?
Right.
So, yeah, the industry's come a really long way and it's been great to watch the evolution. And now you can go to a dental school, and I would say most students aren't necessarily turned off when they hear the acronym DSO, because nowadays, as we see the industry evolve, there are all these additional acronyms. So I would say a lot of dental groups don't call themselves a DSO. They'll call themselves an IDSO, an invisible DSO, or DPO, a dental partnership organization,
Right.
but there's a lot of acronyms that they use to sort of separate themselves from that term DSO.
Right.
But I don't think the negative connotations are there like they once were.
Yeah, that's definitely has changed.
And I feel like group dentistry now certainly played a role in that.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Sort of
Heck
showing
yeah.
people, explaining to people, and educating
education.
people
Yeah.
that yes, okay, there are good sides to a DSO. There are some. Everything in life has good sides and bad sides, and it's really good to see all of the wonderful things that DSOs can bring to the market, including going into markets where a solo practitioner can't go or won't go. When I say that, I'm talking about rural America,
Sure.
inner city.
Yeah. We've all been in this industry so long, right? 20 plus years. And I don't know anybody who says dental school is doing it. Kids are going into dental school and they come out and they know everything. It's so funny how well, here's what I want to know. And maybe we got to have a guest, somebody from a dental school, or maybe all of them, is what are you teaching if everybody who comes out still needs more clinical training, still needs business training, still needs all this stuff? How are they spending this time, and why is it so expensive to come out not prepared? It
goes up every year. The price goes up every year.
Yeah.
We watch it. I watch the cost. It's ridiculous. But so dental schools may not like DSOs. For the most part, they don't advertise them so much.
But they need them. I mean, it's part of the industry. It's not, you got to.
You can lead a horse to water, but I don't know.
Yeah. I want to close just with my own viewpoint here of what I've heard from you both and why you two are so critical to my success with Group Dentistry Now. Bill, you just talked about exits not happening as fast and PE holding on for 5 years, 40 plus platforms. That's got to be one of the highest hold rates out there. I mean,
it's the highest in healthcare by far. I mean, so for all private equity-backed healthcare platforms, dental has the longest hold rate right now for five, like I said, it's 5+, but a lot of them, half of those are 7+ years. So 22 or 23 are over 7 years, which is almost, it can be in some cases twice as long as they typically hold on to a platform.
But I'm using that and I want everybody, this is probably the best way I can sum up Group Dentistry Now, but having that type of information is critical because to me, that hold rate for 5+ years says we're in a pretty recession-proof industry. There is a lot of demand for our services, and people may be looking at this as just a solid investment in dentistry. And I love getting your, the weekly deal roundups, the monthly. You guys provide so much, and I encourage our listeners. Yes, it's a media outlet, but there are so many free resources that you can subscribe to as a dentist, as a manufacturing employee, as a public health person, as an office manager. The value is there, but if we ask you back, could we do a part 2 or a part 2 and 3 on this? We've just scratched the surface. And I really next time want to talk about how we repair. And here we'll do a big tease. Dun, dun, dun. How do we repair a business that is run by classically trained business people who do not understand clinical dentistry, yet all of the people working for the business don't have a business background, but are rich in clinical skill? So we'll leave that. I'll give you guys a little while to think about it, but please say yes and you'll come back and we'll discuss that then.
Yes.
Sure.
Yes.
Awesome.
Well, thanks, Bill and Kim, for joining us on this another enlightening episode, digging a little deeper in these corners of dentistry that we all know are out there, but maybe afraid to talk about, but not us. We'll talk about anything. Who knows? Join us again. Don't forget to like, subscribe, forward to a friend, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks everybody. Thanks, Kim. Thanks,
Thank
Bill.
you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.